Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the CFL DFS video for week number 2. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going through my CFL DFS sheet for week number 2, talking about each player that I do have listed as kind of a GPP option, a cash game option, a pay down option, or a dart throw, and kind of walking through my thoughts on each team just a little bit, as well as whether or not I'd be overweight or underweight to the field on each specific player. And with that being said, we do have one team on bye because it's the CFL, so we do have a team on bye every single week. And the team that's going to be on bye this week is the Toronto Argonauts. And with that being said, we pretty much have all the injury news up and through Wednesday, so I do typically wait till I record these till later in the day on Wednesday just so we have as much information out as possible since the games are staggered for CFL if you're not familiar with it. But we're going to start off with the Ottawa Redblacks. They are the team that did not play last week. They were on bye. So at the quarterback position, we got Tyree Adams and Jeremiah Masoli both out this week. And they do have Drew Brown listed as the starter at $9,100. Not sure how strong that starting job is for him, so I kind of have him as a GPP option with a question mark behind it. If you want to go out and play him, you can. I think it's probably going to be pretty tight between him and Dustin Crum. I would not be surprised, if they use both quarterbacks in this game whatsoever. And then Jake Dunaway will act as kind of that third quarterback this week overall. Delonta Williams, their main running back, is out this week due to an Achilles injury. I believe he's going to be out for the season, so it's kind of weird that they haven't put him on the injured list already, though. Raquel Armstead was kind of limited in practice this week due to a quad injury. He was technically listed as questionable, but he is listed as the starter on the depth chart. And they also have Almakar Polk, probably mispronouncing his name, but it's going to be an interesting backfield for them. I think they're probably going to be a little bit better in the passing game than they are going to be in the running game. It is notable that Devonta Dedmon, who is going to be their return man, is also listed as a backup running back on the depth chart, even though their video that they released to Twitter had him listed as a starter, which I do believe is going to be a wide receiver as well. And then for those receiving options, we got Braylon Addison as a potential paydown option. He's $2,800. He's been dealing with a little bit of an illness bug this week, but should be good to go. So last year he performed pretty well when he was able to play. He's performed pretty well at the CFL level in the past, so $2,800, pretty decent price tag there. Obviously that illness could slow him down just a little bit, but if you want to take some shots there, definitely feel free to do so. And then kind of for their main wide receiving options, Justin Hardy returns $8,800, solid GPP option there. Dominique Grimes does join the team. He's $8,400. If you want to roll him out as a GPP option, you probably could. And then lastly, we have Khalil Pendleton here at $3,800. Had a really strong preseason, former Central Michigan wide receiver. And he had a cup of coffee on the practice squad, I would believe, with the New York Giants most of the last season. But he was really, really good in the preseason, so I consider him a paydown option as well. Nick Martiner is listed as a starter as well at $4,300, but would like to see him a little bit cheaper if we were going to go out there and play him. Obviously, Javon Lachlan will be another guy that's going to be on the field a ton for them, so pretty interesting wide receiver room, but I'd mainly be interested in Hardy, kind of in line with the field. Pendleton, kind of a dart throw here and there. Same thing with Braylon Addison. And then with Dominique Grimes, probably in line with the field, slightly underweight to the field this week overall. And in terms of the defense, not really getting there versus the Blue Bombers this week for the Ottawa Redblacks. Then we move down to Blue Bombers team. Zach Collaros, $10,200, probably the most disappointing quarterback performance of week number 1. Still listed as a GPP option, probably in line with the field, maybe slightly underweight to the field. We'll just kind of have to see where that all shakes out. Obviously, coming off that bad week, maybe people are a little bit more down on him just in general. Maybe people are point chasing just a little bit as well. Brady Oliveira, the running back, did not practice all week due to a knee injury. He is technically listed as questionable. I have Johnny Augustine listed as a GPP paydown option. Obviously, if Brady Oliveira is unable to go, Augustine's going to be a very good play overall. It would be overweight to the field on him just in general. And then for the wide receivers, it's mainly going to be Nick Dominski and Dalton Shane, GPP options. $9,000, $10,100 respectively. Probably be in line with the field, slightly overweight to the field on them this week overall. I think probably in line with the field on Dalton Shane and then slightly overweight to the field on Nick Dominski. It is notable that Kenny Lawler is on the 6-game injury list. And then Drew Wolters-Ziske is the other wide receiver I would consider at $3,700. I will note, too, in my sheet, I have all the return guys listed as returners, too. You can pretty much play any returner in the CFL if you really want to do so. If they get enough return yards, they're going to be viable at their respective price tags. So Myron Mitchell is the primary return guy for the Blue Bombers. Devonta Dedmon is the primary return guy for the Ottawa Redblacks this week. In terms of that Blue Bombers defense, I think there's going to be a bounce-back performance this week versus Ottawa, so $4,600 GPP option there, probably in line with the field on them this week overall. Moving down to the Montreal Alouettes, coming off a very strong performance in week 1. Cody Fajardo is $8,400. Consider him a strong GPP option once again, probably slightly overweight to the field on him. Walter Fletcher, running back, not as good week 1 as I thought he would be, but $4,800. Still a very good price tag GPP option, slightly overweight to the field on him once again this week. Jayshawn Antwi behind him did not really do much of anything in week 1, so it's just going to be Walter Fletcher mainly. Sean Thomas Erlington did get a little bit of a run there at times, but nothing too major. And then we get down to wide receivers. The biggest news this week is that Tyler Snead is going to be out this week. He's dealing with a foot or ankle injury, so it's pretty thin in this wide receiver room, and not particularly thin by depth standards, just particularly thin by guys that I like to play. Tyson Philpott, who was min-priced last week, was the top wide receiver option of the week, was the easiest cash game play last week. He's still very much a cash game play this week at $4,400. Just way too cheap of a price tag. And then, if you really want to play Charleston Rambo at $8,300, you could do it. Obviously, coming off that strong preseason. Wasn't that great week 1, though. And then Reggie White Jr. is on the 6-guy MIL. Cole Speaker, if you really want to get there, is kind of a pay-down option. You could do it. And then James Lecter Jr. is the returner. If he gets any work in the receiving game at all, could help make him be a pretty viable option at $3,000. Would be kind of a dart throw, though. And then Shadler Furvis was able to practice in full this week due to hip injury. He will be in for this week overall. And then we had the Alouettes defense, $4,400 GPP option versus the Edmonton Elks this week. Should be a pretty decent matchup for them, probably in line with the field on their defense overall. Maybe slightly underweight just because maybe people are a little bit overweight to them after the strong performance versus Winnipeg. And then for the Edmonton Elks team, McLeod Bethel-Thompson led the way at quarterback in week 1. Still very much a GPP option. And week number 2, he should have some pretty high-end upside once again. Kevin Brown at running back, $6,900. Definitely interested in him as a GPP option. Could have some decent upside there as well. And then we're going to keep moving down. So the wide receivers, it's going to be pretty interesting here. We have Gavin Cobb and Vincent Forbes-Moblow both on the 6-game injured list. Kyron Moore is done for the year. He tore his ACL last week, unfortunately. So mainly at wide receiver, I'm looking at Curly Gittens Jr. as a GPP option, as well as Eugene Lewis. And then I like Hergy Mayala, $3,300. Looks like a viable cash game option coming off a really strong preseason and a really strong week number 1. So probably going to be overweight to the field on Hergy, and then probably in line with the field on Eugene Lewis, and maybe slightly overweight to the field on Curly Gittens, as it seems like him and McLeod Bethel-Thompson have a really good chemistry together, which obviously goes back to their time in Toronto together. And then, if you really want to play Dylan Mitchell, you could do it. He had a pretty strong week, number 1. I'm just not there myself personally. And then for that Elks defense, I'm not really getting there too much this week overall going against the Alouettes. For some reason, the price tag did disappear here. I'll be adding that back in after this video is done. Then we move down to BC Lions. Vernon Adams Jr., $10,700. GPP option, probably in line with the field on him. Once again, obviously, you want to get some decent exposure to him. Coming off a really strong performance in week number 1. William Stanback, the lone running back for this BC Lions team. Pretty decent performance in week number 1. You could use them as a cash game play if you really wanted to do so at $7,000. And then in terms of the wide receivers, Keon Hatcher remains on the 6-game IL. Alexander Holland's potential cash game option once again at $8,900 did lead the way in the receiving department. Justin McKinnis had a really strong week number 1, so kind of a pay down option there if you want to get there at $4,700. And then we also have Javon Catoy and Travis Fulgham, $3,300 and $3,800 respectively. Both could be pay down options as well. Still kind of seeing how this wide receiver room shakes out. And then obviously Terry Williams is doing the return duties once again. For the BC Lions defense, going against Calgary Stampeders this week, $4,300. GPP option, probably slightly overweight to the field on them once again. And then we move down to that Stampeders team. I'm not super interested in Jake Meyer versus BC Lions defense this week overall. If you really want to play him as kind of a leverage play, you can definitely do that. Not a bad price tag at $9,000 overall. At the running back position, we did see BJ Emmons listed technically as the starter last week, but Dedrick Mills still got the majority of the carries. So $7,100 on Dedrick Mills GPP option if you want to get there. And then Peyton Logan was a healthy scratch in week number 1. William Langley is the fullback still on that 6-game injury list, so we did see Lucas Robertson active, but not trying to get to him either way. And then in terms of the wide receiver options for the Stampeders, we got Jalen Philpott listed as a limited participant in practice Tuesday and Wednesday due to a hamstring injury. We'll see ultimately whether or not he's able to go this week or not. But mainly going to be interested in Reggie Bagleton. Cam Michaels-Looper has GPP options, probably in line with the field, maybe slightly underweight to the field on some of them. Probably could get some decent ownership on them in week number 2, though. Mark and Michelle, GPP pay down option if you want to get there at $3,900. And then Eric Brooks did do most of the return duties last week at $3,200, so he could be in play there. Didn't really do much in terms of the offensive end, though. And then for the Stampeders defense, going against the BC Lions, not really trying to get there at $3,700 this week overall. And then we move down to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So we got Bo Levi Mitchell, who looked actually really good in week number 1, $9,600 GPP option. Probably in line with the field on him this week, maybe slightly overweight to the field. Coming off that really strong performance, like I said, in week number 1. James Butler, coming off a hamstring injury, $9,100, looked really, really good in week 1. So GPP option, maybe even a potential cash game option if you really want to get there at that running back position. I did list Greg Bell here at $2,500. He's on the practice squad right now. And then for the receiving options, they actually had quite a bit in week number 1 for this Hamilton Tiger Cats team. So Shamar Bridges played really, really well in week 1, $3,500. Could consider him a potential cash game option once again this week. And then Stephen Dunbar Jr., I believe, caught all 5 targets last week. Was a pretty decent player, $5,100 GPP option if you want to go there. Probably in line with the field on him, maybe slightly underweight to the field. Could be a potential leverage play, though. Luther is dealing with an ankle injury. He didn't practice on Wednesday. And then Brendan O'Leary Orange, who actually played pretty well week 1, limited Wednesday due to hamstring injuries. So we'll see whether he plays this week or not. And then Tim White is obviously the big name in this wide receiver room, $9,600 GPP option, probably in line with the field on him once again. And Keandre Smith is a pay down option at $3,000. And he actually had a pretty good week 1 as well. So definitely do like a lot of the options in this wide receiver room. Bridge is probably going to be my favorite, followed by Tim White, then Keandre Smith, then Stephen Dunbar. So that's kind of where I'm at in the pecking order for them. Their defense could be a GPP option at $4,000 going against the Rough Riders if they can get some pressure on Trevor Harris and company. Could ultimately end up working out. And then lastly, we get down to the Roughnecks. Trevor Harris, $7,800. Still way too cheap a price tag right now at this point in time. A starting quarterback that's getting essentially all the snaps for his team, $7,800, would consider him a viable cash game play once again. I think it's a decent matchup versus this Tiger Cats defense. We're still not sure how good that Tiger Cats defense is going to be this season overall. AJ Alouette, a running back, $8,800. GPP option, had a decent week number 1, but obviously you'd like to see a little bit more out of him. At fullback, Bruno Labelle did practice in full on Wednesday due to his leg injury after missing week 1. And then we move down to the wide receiver options. Sean Bain Jr. had an extremely good week number 1, which I think I mentioned him as a good GPP option for week number 1. Still think he's going to be for week number 2. Obviously, we'll see if some of these other guys make their way kind of in a little bit more, but still like him as a GPP option. Think he's going to be pretty popular, so I'll probably be in line with the field on him overall. Samuel MLS, $4,200, still a very viable GPP paydown option, probably in line with the field on him once again as well. Keyshawn Johnson's $7,900. Like I said, I didn't expect much from him in week 1, and he didn't give much in week 1 as well, so still not getting to him in week number 2. And then we got Keon Schaefer-Baker, $4,600. Pay down option if you want to get there, probably in line with the field, maybe slightly overweight to the field on him this week overall. And then Jarrett Stearns at $3,600, very viable GPP pay down option, was pretty good in week number 1, so probably going to be overweight to the field on him once again in week number 2. And then for this Rough Riders defense, got GP option with a question mark behind him. Not sure how good this defense is going to be overall, but going against the Tiger Cats could be a decent matchup with some potential for some upside at the very least. So maybe slightly overweight to the field on them this week overall. But with that being said, that's kind of what I do have in terms of my thoughts for week number 2. If you have any specific questions whatsoever related to CFL DFS for week number 2, be sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then with that being said, if there's any other major updates, we'll be leaving them down in the comments. Otherwise, my sheet will be updated on the daily over on Patreon at patreon.com/CoachCraigSports. So definitely be sure to check that out over there. A very small monthly donation ends up being, just over $1 per week if you're using this every single week. But with that being said, if you were brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have MLB DFS in terms of the core picks, Monday through Friday. We have the CFL DFS video dropping once a week. This video typically on Wednesdays, and then I will have my UFL DFS championship video for the single game slate coming out on Friday as well this week. So definitely be sure to check that out if that's something you're interested in as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for Prize Picks, Parlay Play, and BetUS. If you're a brand new user on any one of those 3 sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's 125% match up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. And then with that being said, if you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day, a good weekend overall, and some good luck in CFL DFS for week number 2.